All right, Harry Powell here for Severe MMA, and I am joined by one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC right now, Mr. Jack Shaw. How's it going, sir?
Yes, very good, mate. Thank you. How are you?
All right, mate. Yeah, wonderful. I know we're a little bit short on time, so I'll jump straight in. I firstly just wanted to talk to you about the progression of the last little while. Right, I remember watching way back when. I think maybe when you fought for the Cage Warriors title, there was a VT of you running in the hills at home. You were sparring on the red mats, the old red mats, and there was a conversation about how this was something you were ready for. This is something you've been bred for. Coming off the biggest win of your career, maybe people don't know Timur Valiev, but he's an excellent fighter, and to put on a performance like you put on, I just wondered if you had a chance to reflect on sort of where you've come from and to where you are now.
Yeah, we've come a long way. The settings hasn't changed. I'm still in the same valley, and I know we've got a better gym now, but still the same coaches, a lot of the same training partners. So it's nice to be able to sort of stay the course. And a lot of people probably thought I may have dipped off towards the top level of the UFC, or maybe thought that a lot of people probably thought my peak was sort of winning the Cage Warriors belt. And obviously we always wanted to go a lot further than that. So to be able to prove myself, and obviously like my teammates and my coaches, right, who've been singing my praises for so long, it's it's something I'm very proud of. And it reminds, not to compare myself to Conor McGregor at all, but he was always that guy saying, you don't need to go to these big gyms in the US. You should have faith in your coaches, have faith in your training partners, have faith in the people that got you to the top level, that they can take you to to even further than what people expected. So it's nice to be able to be here and obviously pick up these big wins, but to also do it with some of my original training partners and my original coaches as well.
Well, I wanted to talk about that, actually. I wanted to touch on the relationship you have with your father and just the team generally. There seems to be an absolute wealth of knowledge, right? Not just specific to MMA, but generally martial arts in total. Where does that come from, and how do you cultivate that as a team?
It just comes from the coaches. My old man and myself have been doing this now 20 plus years. My wrestling coach Carl Parker, he's been in martial arts probably longer than me and my old man. One of the first guys in Wales, maybe even the UK, to be a member of sort of a catch wrestling team and train with some of the world class guys there. My Thai coach Heem, who's been working with me the last 4 years. The guy's, I think he's 36. He's been retired 8 years. He's had 148 pro Thai fights. Head coach at AKA Thailand. L pads for guys like Mark and Tai Tuivasa. To be a head coach of a gym like that is insane. So you got him. I mean, my boxing coach Gary Lockett. I've been there, seen it, done it at all levels. Multiple time amateur champion, fought for world titles, was a British champion, European champion, has coached pro fighters to British and world titles. So it just comes from the coaches. And I think a lot of my teammates, especially the younger boys, I mean, obviously Brett as well, like Brett Johns we got on the team now. He brings a wealth of knowledge, a lifetime of knowledge himself. And a lot of the boys, I think, especially the youngsters coming through, they look at me and Brett and sort of what we've achieved. And if it's working for us, I think they know it can work for them. The fortunate thing they've got is obviously, as well as the coaches, they've got me and Brett and Scotty and Chris and some of the more experienced guys who can pass on knowledge as well. But it's just a tight knit team. We're family and friends, to be honest, more than teammates. It's not like these big American gyms where you're there just to sort of look after yourself. Like the boys fought on the weekend, and I was more nervous for them than I've ever been for myself. So it just comes the knowledge and the experience and the growth. It's all down to the coaches and obviously some of the more experienced boys in the team who help pass it on as well.
Sure, and I wanted to I had in my notes to touch on Brett Jones. If you could speak a little bit about the uplifting nature that Brett Jones brings to that gym. I mean, obviously there were great guys in the gym before, and you really were sort of spearheading that from the highest level of competition perspective. But bringing Brett in, obviously went out and had a fantastic performance at Bellator Dublin. How, especially being around your weight, right? What's that done for the camp and yourself?
To be honest, I mean, like it's just having Brett and the boys join us and sort of train every day. It's done nothing but push the level through the roof. Like for myself, it's brought me on no ends having him there. And like there's genuine days where me and Brett are sparring to be 50-50, but then there's days where he absolutely hammers me, and then there's days where I'll absolutely have the better of him. And that's exactly what you want, especially competing at the top level. And if anyone who's ever met Brett in person will be able to tell you he's one of the most genuine, nicest guys you'll meet. He's got brilliant energy. He's a ball of laughter and fun every time he gets in the gym. But he also takes his training very serious. When the timer goes on and it's time to train, he's 100% intensity, much like myself. And it's been incredible to have him. And I think we're over 2 years now that he's been a part of the team. And he's an essential part. We'd be lost without him. The coaches would be devastated if we didn't have him, to be honest. And I know he loves being with us as much as we love having him with us. And 2 years down, hopefully many more to come.
For sure. I wanted to touch on maybe two slightly more obscure questions, and I'll throw the first at you. And that's around a conversation that we've been having internally in MMA at the moment about self-promotion over acquiring skills, right? Now, you're somebody that's acquired an incredible skill set. However, I touched on at the very start of this that you're, in my opinion, a very underrated fighter. Not many people, I think, respect the level of skill you have or even know the level of skill you have. And if I can, I think part of that is because you don't have an incredibly brash personality. You're somebody that generally shoots straight from the hip, but you're somebody that you've already shown in this interview that's very, very humble and gives a lot of the praise away from yourself. From your perspective, how do you manage the balance of self-promotion? Because I mean that's where it seems that the MMA is at the moment, in comparison to spending time to just acquiring better and better and better skills to show when the cage door closes.
I mean, it goes hand in hand, doesn't it? You can be the biggest talker in the world and you can talk a great game, but if you can't back it up, you're never gonna. Like, I'm not in the sport to I don't worry too. I'm fortunate. I've earned good money in the sport, but I'm not here to try and be the richest guy in the sport or the biggest celebrity or the biggest personality. I've gone into martial arts from 6 years of age before anyone even knew what MMA was or what jiu-jitsu was. There's still people now that just think I'm a kickboxer. Are you still into your kickboxing kind of thing? So I'm not. I've always sort of said to myself when I went pro, I'm never going to be fake, and I'm always going to be true to myself. I'm not a trash talk. I'm not a brash person. I back myself and back my skills. And if people do want to get into a bit of a war words, and obviously I'm capable of backing myself up, but at the same time, I'm not going to go out there and try and pretend to be someone I'm not, because I think that it may sort of push me along further and faster. I mean, eventually you'll get exposed in the end if you can't back up your skills. Obviously, there's guys that can do both, but I've always been the martial artist. I've never been the showman, so to speak, unless you're speaking in terms of putting on a show in the cage, But I am who I am. People can like. I mean, for me, like even speaking in front of a camera, that's a big thing. Like as a kid growing up, I was very extroverted. I didn't like attention. I still get a little bit uncomfortable now when I have people praising me up and bigging me up. I'm obviously a lot more comfortable now. I have a lot of practice and many years in front of it. But I'm not an out there person. I like the quiet life. But it is what it is. Obviously, I know that you've got to promote yourself a little bit, but I just try to do it in my own way. Of I'm the guy that's got to go in there and be tough to beat for anyone in the world. And if you're a fan of skill and MMA and technique, then you'll be able to see that just by watching me fight.
For sure. So I'm going to take a slight pivot, and this question's a very broad one, so I'll apologise. We'll see where we go with it. But you already spoke in this interview about you've been doing this for 20 years with your dad, right? 20 years in martial arts is a long time, right? Specifically a long time to be a competitor and an athlete, right? Less so maybe a coach or sort of a casual person, but this life has not been casual for you. This has been something that's sort of embedded in the fiber of your DNA for as long as you've been alive, essentially, right? 6 years old, you said you started. I wanted to ask sort of a combined question. One being, how do you keep the passion and the longevity combined for, intense amounts of training, intense amounts of dedication, and how does that reflect into who you are as a person? I think that's probably two questions. So if we go with the longevity first.
Yeah, longevity wise, it's being smart. There were years, and we're all guilty of it, even sort of at probably 16, 17, where we sort of thought we had to spar hard every night of a fight coming up, and we thought every session had to be 100% intensity, 100% impact, small gloves taking shots every night. But we have come a long way since then. The sport as a general, I mean, you're seeing now more and more the top guys like saying they're not sparring or not sparring as much. And I think everything has its place. Like you've got to spar. I think there's got to be times when you've got to spar hard and test yourself in the gym. But at the same time, I'm not getting knocked about every day. I have one or two tough spars a week, and then we do a lot of sort of groundwork, a lot of pad work, a lot of drilling. And we just keep it fresh. There's still ways you can sharpen yourself up without sort of what's the saying McGregor used to use. You can update
the software without damaging the
hardware. And there is ways of doing that. You can have a very intense wrestling session, but we obviously not have to worry about impact to the head. Same with sort of we do a lot of ground and positional rounds where you're not just, it's not that sort of a fight every single night. So in terms of longevity, I find, like, especially outside of camp, I spar very little outside of camp in terms of MMA sparring. I'll do maybe one session a week, and that probably involves 4 rounds. A lot of it will be grappling and just big glove sparring, and it's still sparring, I suppose, but not every impact. I'm not in camp in a minute, so I'm not gonna go to the gym tonight and do 5, 6, 7 rounds of MMA sparring where it's intense, and I'm pushing myself to the limit every single round. So it helps keep I mean, if you can't get to the fight, you're never going to be able to leave it. A lot of fighters do themselves in the gym. You know what I mean? They leave it all in the gym. They have these gym wars, and yeah, it's great and to look back on and tell the stories. But there's not many of those guys ever really reach the pinnacle of the sport or ever really sort of have any longevity. And I'm very fortunate in fights. I've took very little damage over my career. I've had a couple of hand breaks, and I had a shoulder injury. I think I picked up 1 cut in 28 fights. I'm not sure how many shots I've absorbed, but I can imagine in 16 fights as a pro, it's a lot less than most guys. So, it's just I'm a smart fighter as well. There's times when you got to throw caution to the wind, like the last fight a little bit. Sometimes you have just got to bite down and go. But I've always wanted to be that guy that made it look effortless and made it look clean and very technical. So, in terms of longevity, yeah, I think that's why I've been able to stay so fit and so sort of injury free is because we train hard, but we train smart. And I think the coaches, especially over the years, have learned that you don't need to be getting battered and bruised every session to make sure you're ready for a fight.
Absolutely, and I think that leads me into a slightly separate question, and that's, I'm somebody that worries as purely a fan of MMA. I have a striking background, and now I only do grappling, but I've never had an MMA fight, ami or pro. I've never really done any MMA sparring, but certainly I fear and I'm very concerned about head trauma and the lasting damages of head trauma when I'm watching MMA. And I thought, I mean, what you've just said, I think echoes a lot of my sentiment that I agree that there is a necessity for hard sparring, but certainly not every day, and maybe not even every week. And I think that's up to the individual and up to the gym. But I wanted to speak about your style and how that lends to you not taking shots, right? You're somebody that, I think you put it perfectly. You are a smart fighter. You're not somebody that takes unnecessary risks. You're somebody that has a very, very high fight IQ and always seems to make the right decisions. But as you touched on, in that 3rd round against Valiev at UFC London, you did take chances, and those chances paid off drastically. Can you talk me through how you make the decision to sort of go against your style, I guess? I mean, not as drastically as go against your style, but to alter the style in order to really stamp a round out or stamp a fight out. Yeah,
it's risk against reward. If you're 2 rounds up or 2.5 rounds up when you're cruising, and is it worth then for the last 2.5 minutes of a fight where you're potentially dominating? And again, it comes down to fight IQ. Is it worth taking the risk where you could get, because it only takes 1 shot or one little false transition on the ground and you end up in a bad spot. So then you got to sort of think to yourself, is the risk worth the reward? You know, because at the end of the day, I know everyone wants to see knockouts and fight the nights, but a win or a loss can be the difference between us doubling our money and then obviously making more money on the next fight. If we lose, the money stays the same. If we win, 9 times out of 10, or for the majority of fighters, we go on to make a little bit more money next time. So it's risk worth reward. You know, in the last fight, it was a close fight. I had it sort of 1-1 in my head. There was probably people who had it 2-0 to me. There may have been people who had it 2-0 to him. So the corner's saying to me in between, we're going to call it 1-1. You need to go out there and put a stamp on it. So then you got to throw a bit of caution to the wind, and then especially when you get caught in the guillotine and, that's a big moment for him. And you've got to sort of think to yourself, right, and I got to pull it back big here. So again, I like to keep it like technical, but at the same time, I do like a fight as well, to do this sport 21 or whatever it is years. You've got a bit of dog in you and a bit of fight in you, and I'm not shy of a tear up. I like to make it look clean and execute it well, but sometimes you just gotta bite down and go and ask to let a natural fighter in you sort of take over. But for me, it's all risk versus reward. Same as like a submission. If you've dominated a round sort of or 2 rounds on the deck, and the third round, is it worth risking going for a submission? You end up on your back and then you get finished. So, but then obviously there are times where the risk ultimately pays off, and you could be 50 grand richer, or you could, you could notch another finish on your record. And yeah, this weekend was a good example. Last weekend even was a good example of that. It was, sometimes you gotta risk it all to put it on the line in order to sort of come out and get the props you deserve. I'd rather in a close fight like that, I'd rather risk it all trying to take him out and get finished myself than sort of cruise and lose a decision. That would I got no problem in losing, but to lose in a fight where like you could have done more of that, then that would break my heart. So it's a what's it called, a double-ended sword always, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are a couple of things that you've just said there that are fantastic. The first, I picked up on 2 things. First, the guillotine defense. I thought you did absolutely excellently to manage that guillotine. I mean, that's not to say it wasn't tight. That's not to say that he didn't have good grips, but I thought you postured really, really well. You were using your left shoulder to sort of prise away his right arm grip, and it didn't look as though watching it, I was never super worried that was gonna finish you. Your hips were high and you were moving in the right directions, and it felt as though when he wrapped up, it felt as though he felt like, I have to finish this, otherwise I'm going to be in a bad spot, right? Hence, and that's kind of how guillotines work in MMA. But the second was about your corner work, or your team's corner work. I thought it was fantastic. I personally had it 1-1. I thought I scored the first round for you and the second round for him. And going into the third, I thought it was absolutely brilliant corner advice, because easily your corner could have said, like, you're 2 up, go out and do your thing and it will be fine. But they obviously know their fighter, and they know their fighter is a cerebral guy and somebody that likes to think and take that game plan. But to, as you say, bring that dog out in you a little bit and be like, actually, you need to go and win this third round. You need to go and put a stamp on it. And then to go out and hurt him badly and nearly have him out of there just shows that there are extra gears to your game that maybe people haven't seen. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Really brilliant.
Yeah. It's like we always say, it's like playing a computer game. They got a controller, so whatever I know they got nothing. Again, we're not a big gym where they've got 1,000 100 top level fighters that it doesn't matter if I lose. The next guy will pick up the slack for the gym and pick up the momentum. I know that they 100% want me to win and got nothing but my best interest. So if they're telling me to take risks, I know I've got to go out there and take them. And whatever the corner, Carl, my old man, whatever they say, I listen 100%. Whether I agree or disagree with what they're telling me, I'll go out there and do as they say. And again, that's a benefit to having a tight-knit team like ours, where they've got full trust in me that I'll follow their instruction, and I've got full trust that their instruction is the right thing to do. So it works well. We are like people that say it is literally as if my old man is controlling me with an Xbox controller, because if he says jump, I just sort of ask how I and go for it.
Sure. And I wanted to ask a question from something you've just said, and that's that you don't mind losing, but you mind losing if you could have put more into a fight. As somebody that holds the unbeaten record that you do, both AMI and pro, do you find that unbeaten record is a burden at times? Maybe that's a strange question, but for somebody of your stature with the way that you fight and how technical and clean it is, do you find that is a burden at times?
No, and I do get that a lot. People ask, does it add pressure? Almost sort of asked as if, like, would I mind picking up a loss because it takes that pressure away? But I don't think about it. I mean, it's cliche and probably a bit boring to say, but I just focus on the next guy in front of me. I'm not thinking what's 2, 3, 4 fights down the line, or if I can get, like, for example, I could easily, 2 more wins. That's 30 wins in total. That's quite the record, But I don't think about it, and I never have. I mean, it was great up until about 5-0, and then I started fighting like very, very good guys. So I just sort of thought, you gotta, forget about this record malarkey and I think that comes from just fighting the best possible sort of level of opponent. Like all the way through my amateur and pro career, I've never looked for an easy fight. I've always wanted to fight the best guy available. I've had matches in Cage Warriors coming up where they'd send me 2 or 3 names. I'd always pick the best record and the toughest fight. And again, that's the fighter in me, that's the martial artist in me, where you want to test yourself against the best. So the record, it looks great on paper. It obviously adds to the hype. When I sit back and think about it, 28 fights undefeated is a massive, massive achievement. But I think, if I'm honest, it's probably something I'll appreciate more when I retire. To think I went that long without picking up a loss, rather than sort of I don't really appreciate it too much now, because every fight seems to be bigger than the last. The last fight is soon forgotten about as soon as the next one's announced. So yeah, I just try not to think about it too much. I just sort of put it to the back of my mind. Like I say, it looks great on the promos, doesn't it? But to me, like, being undefeated, it doesn't mean too much.
I think that's very sensible. And I want to see, maybe with the time that we have left, if we could try to unpack where this personality has accumulated from, right? Where the ability to just not think about being an undefeated fighter, the way that you can be a cerebral fighter, the way that you can outlay that trust to your corner, the way that you can approach training in a smart way, the way that you don't seem that fazed about a lack of notoriety in the sport with the more casual fans. I mean, obviously hardcore fans know exactly who you are and what you bring. Where does that personality, where does the humility, where does that groundedness come from? How do you cultivate that in a sport that I think allows fighters to be anything but that?
Like, I think I've just been brought up like it, and again, it probably goes back to being in the sport for so long. Like, I didn't get into this sport basing and looking to, like, base myself on personalities from the sport. I've been in the sport since I was a kid. At 6, 7 years of age, even at 12, 13 years of age. You're not thinking about, like, emulating a personality or trying to be someone else or trying to be a character. You're just in there training and competing, and you are who you are. And I've always been brought up by my parents to sort of, remain humble. And yeah, again, I keep going back to it. I'm not afraid of confrontation, but at the same time, like, if I was any more laid back, I'd be in reverse. That's what my mother always says to me. So, and I think I've just, like I said, when you grow up in a sport, to me, it's not a job, and it's not like, I'm in it to make money and I'm in it to make this much money and get out of it. It's just growing up. It's always been in my life. It was the same as going to school, where you go to school, that's part of your life growing up. For me, part of my life growing up was going to training in the night and getting ready for a competition next month and the week after and whatever. So I am who I am. It's not an act. Everyone who knows me or have known me for years from around my town, my friends, they'll tell I've been the same from 10 years of age right the way up to now. I don't try and be someone I'm not. Even when the mic's on, the camera's on, I just am who I am. And I've always had, like, again, it's a laid back attitude, I know, but I've always had the attitude of people can either like it or not like it. And people, I know people probably like to see me trash talk a bit more and be a bit more out there, but that's just not me. It would come across unnatural, and it's not me. I'm not going to be someone I'm not. I've always said that to myself from the minute I got in the sport. So my personality just comes from the way I was brought up. I've probably got a very typical sort of small Welsh Valley personality, where we're not concerned with too much that we can't control. And yeah, I just look, when you've grown up and your living is getting into a fist fight with someone who for 8 weeks is training to knock you out or put you to sleep, there ain't gonna be a lot in life that really phases you or makes you uneasy. And the fact I'm so laid back is probably a secret little weapon, to be honest, because I don't let the press. I don't let fighting to me is not something that it doesn't need to be. I don't make it this big thing where it's the be all and end all. And if you win or you lose, and to me, it's just a way of life. Win, lose or draw is something I've always done, and that's something I always will do. So it just again, another boring answer, I know, but it's not. Again, the person, it's probably just come from my parents and the place I grew up, where I'm just chilled and laid back, and what will be will be.
I think I completely disagree with you, actually. I don't think it's boring at all. I think it's actually extremely refreshing. I mean, you're so laid back, you've been reversed is such a Welsh saying. That is such a Welsh saying. I could hear my mother say that a million times over. Like, that's unbelievable. But I think the point that you made about growing up in a small Welsh town is absolutely nailed on as well. I mean, I was born in Merthyr, right? And spent some time there before I was eventually dragged to England. But I think I agree. Like, people that I knew there and people that I still know there, they have a very similar feeling to you, a very similar sort of aura. I don't really like that word, but that's what I'm going to go with. Like, a very similar aura to you, where it's like we just are who we are, right? And nothing too lofty. We don't allow things too lofty to get to us, but equally we don't allow things too dark to get to us either. It's a very level-headed approach, and I find that generally with Welsh people, especially in my family. As I said, I think it's very refreshing. The fight game is something that is very visceral, right? There's lots and lots of emotions to it, whether you're a competitor, whether you're a fan, a viewer, a media member, whoever it is. And to find somebody who is unapologetically themselves, and that person, that themselves is a martial artist. Something, again, we've spoken about in the Severe MMA group internally is sort of the mixture of people. You can have an athlete that does MMA, you can have just a fighter that does MMA, like a Mike Perry type person, just a fighter, and then you can have a martial artist like yourself or a GSP or these people that we could reel off. Like, I think it's so refreshing to have somebody like yourself get the success that you've gotten from the hard work that you've put in, and return to the same camp with the same people and be able to dust yourself off, heal up those injuries, and just go right back to training. I mean, I think that's really, really beautiful. Yeah,
I mean, it's like you said, it's probably a testament to my family and my coaches and the people around me for, they would never let me not I would, but they would never let my head swell and get too big for my boots anyway. But it's the old saying that Khabib always said, don't stay humble. And I've always sort of thought to myself, you stay humble or eventually you're going to get humbled. So, I always keep my feet on the ground and, just deal with what comes my way and what's in front of me one step at a time. There's no big scheme or 5-year plan or whatever. It's just take it as it comes, enjoy it. Too many people like are worried so much about the end goal, they don't enjoy the ride at the time. I know I can't do this forever. Simple as, I realistically probably in my own head, probably 4 or 5 years left max, to be honest, because I've been in the sport so long. And it's like I'm going to enjoy it whilst I'm here and enjoy every moment of it and not get too far out of myself.
Well, I'll ask the final question, and I guess it's a cliche question, and I'm going to take it from what you've just said. You've mentioned 4 or 5 years left. What happens after that? Do you have a plan for that? Is it you go and join Shore MMA as a coach? Like, what is your retirement plan, so to say?
Yeah, honestly, I'll always be involved in the sport, regardless of whether I'm actively competing or not. I would obviously I'd love to go down the coaching route. I coach a couple of the kids now, and a couple of younger boys. I try and help them out. Like we've got boys from 16 to 20 in the team that sort of look up to me a little bit, and Brett, and try and help them out with a bit of coaching and a bit of guidance where I can. So it will be nice, I think, to obviously go into it. I can. I know coaches are great, and I'll never be able to coach on the level that my old man and Carl do. But I suppose I can add to the team that I'm the guy who's sort of been there and done it. I know how it feels to be, in those sellout arenas in Wales for cage wars, and I know how it feels to fight in front of, behind closed doors or in Abu Dhabi or wherever it be in front of sold out crowds. But I know like the UFC experience. I know that the parts of the job that the people don't necessarily think about that you've got to deal with, and I can obviously help. And I mean, I've always liked the idea of going into managing fighters, to be honest, as well. You know, especially
I like that.
Especially having sort of been there and seen it myself. You know, especially the Welsh boys. I don't think the Welsh boys always necessarily get a fair, you know, cut of the cake, as they say. So it'd be nice to maybe have a little venture into that as well. So never say never on that front. But I'm smart with my money. You know, I've invested my money that I have made, and I think, you know, fingers crossed, in 4 or 5 years or whatever it is, I'll be in a position where when I do retire, I'll be able to sort of work as something I enjoy, like a coach or maybe a fighter manager or something along those lines. But coaching's in the future, whether it be in the corner coaching or just helping out at the gym. But that'll always be a part of my life, being there no matter what.
Do you have time for a question on the MMA management thing, or do you need to run?
No, go on. Yeah, let's have it.
All right, fucking let's do it. All right. So that's a really brilliant thing, and I don't know why I didn't put those two things together as a possibility. But like, I have a very maybe a controversial opinion about managers, and that a lot of them are actually a detriment to the fighters. I'm not, you know, we won't name any names, but there are some very high profile managers that seem to negotiate on terms that will allow them to expand the breadth of their fighter roster in the UFC, and therefore making themselves more money rather than just sort of expanding their own fighters' purse, right? I'll ask a broad question. Why do you want to get into MMA management? I know that you mentioned that you don't think necessarily the Welsh fighters get the best rub, but is there specific reasons as to why you feel like you could bring something a positive to the MMA management sphere?
Not maybe, like, my manager, we've always gone on great, and I, you know, in terms of money and stuff like that, you've always got the absolute most for me that you could, you know. But that's because me and him know each other on a personal level. He's watched me grow up in the sport, and I feel, you know, I may be wrong, but I feel he's got that personal attachment to me, you know, rather than just, you know, he's the manager, I'm the fighter, and right, that's Jack's contract. That, right, we'll get Jack this fight. You know, I feel like he wants what's best for me, and I don't think a lot of guys get that in the sport. You know, I think a lot of guys, they rush to join these big management firms, and they're just another statistic. You know, they're another number to like you said, they're another guy to the pal. You know, let's get him in the UFC. All right, they have 2 tough fights, they back out, but at least, you know, I have my little paycheck on them. Whereas again, that's not been the case with my manager. It's not like I'm subliminally trying to like think, oh, I've had a bad experience. I haven't. I've had nothing but the best management. But I just like to help guide the guys at the gym. You know, my old man manages a few of the boys, and I just know he's so busy that when it does come to like the bigger shows and stuff, he kind of, you know, takes a back seat. Whereas if I had a bit more time on my hands, I'd love to be able to take over. And again, I've been in and seen it and done it. I know what benefits fighters. I know what doesn't benefit them. You know, there's plenty of opportunities out there the fighters don't click onto that maybe their management should be looking for them. So again, it's not something I've sort of set in stone, but I just was chatting a few years ago, my old man, I was like, you know, I think I could be a decent fighter manager, you know, and I would do it to mainly help out the boys in the gym and sort of help guide them. I wouldn't want to be like, you know, there's so many that want to be they want the show to be about them, and they want to be they want to be at the press conference and on the camera and all that. And I feel like if I was going to do it, I would be doing it for the right reasons, you know, not just to make a bit of money out of it. It'd probably end up just being the boys from my gym in Wales, to be honest. I wouldn't want to be one of these. I probably won't want to be one of these big time managers where it's my full-time job. I don't think I got the head for that. I'm too laid back and don't like the stress. But I'd be more than happy to help the Welsh boys out and try and like create some opportunities for them and some of the youngsters coming through. Maybe, who knows?
Fighters First Management, run by Jack Shaw. You've heard it here for us.
Yeah.
Look, I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for your time. I know that I've taken nearly 4 minutes more than we agreed, but it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm really excited to watch the rest of your career, as I've been excited to follow it for the last few years. So thank you very much for your time, and hopefully I'll speak to you soon.
Yes, mate. Nice one. Thank you.